Hey there, Saints. Pastor Dave here with another weekly devotional for you this Wednesday. I'm going to start with another reading from Sarah Arthur's One Year Daily Grind, and this one is about blindness. Remember Jesus' statement about the sick being the ones who know they need a doctor? There's a gospel story of a blind man, Bartimaeus, who had no shame about asking Jesus for help. He hollered out loud until he got everyone's attention, including the ear of the master. Bartimaeus was suffering, and he wanted help from someone who thought had tremendous power, the healer. But the interesting thing is that this story takes place as Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem for one last time. In fact, just a few verses earlier, Jesus took his disciples aside and very clearly told them what would happen once they got to Jerusalem. He said, "The Son of Man will be betrayed to the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. They will sentence him to die and hand him over to the Romans. They will mock him, spit on him, flog him with a whip, and kill him. But after 3 days, he will rise again." So Jesus was well aware of the suffering that was in store for him. He tried several times to convince his own friends that what they would face in Jerusalem was apparent defeat, not victory. But then tucked into those conversations about greatness versus weakness was this little story about a blind man who wouldn't take no for an answer. What Bartimaeus didn't realize was that he was asking for help from one who would soon suffer far more than he could possibly imagine. Bartimaeus sought Jesus because he thought Jesus was a man of power. But Jesus reached out to help because Jesus is a man of sorrows. He reached out because he knows what it's like to face a future that is dark and without earthly hope. What about us? When we face our own kinds of suffering, does it occur to us that others might need our help in the midst of it all? Saints, when we read Scripture, sometimes it's easy to break it up into chunks, into little pieces and stories, and only read that bit and try to interpret it on its own. But it's important for us to remember the context. It's important for us to look at the bigger picture and the longer narrative of Scripture to be able to make sense of some of these stories that we read. For example, this healing of Bartimaeus. If we only saw the healing, we would think, okay, Jesus is powerful. Jesus is a miracle worker. But when we read it in the context, knowing that Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, on his way to his own death, we see what Sarah sees and what she pointed out here, that Jesus is a man who suffers. And because he suffers, he is able to understand and able to address the suffering of others. Jesus has empathy for Bartimaeus, and he attends to him in his need. I know this about myself, that I have a tendency to get down when things are difficult, to focus in on my pain and to really kind of get tunnel vision, where all I can see is how I'm hurting in this difficult time that I'm going through. And the problem with that is that it doesn't tend to make things any better. Focusing on my sorrows and on my hurt really only seems to amplify the hurt. It doesn't seem to solve any of those issues. But sometimes when someone else comes along who is also hurting, it turns my attention away from me and towards them. And it kind of distracts me a little bit as I recognize that, the hurt that I'm feeling, well, someone else is feeling a similar kind of hurt. And maybe I should be paying attention to them and doing what I can to help them. And when I start doing that and I stop focusing on me, I stop feeling so bad about myself and my situation. Has that ever happened to you? You ever kind of been distracted from your own hurt and all of a sudden you start feeling better? I think that when we are in pain, we are actually better equipped to deal with the pain and the sorrow of others. And I think that's part of why Jesus was so good at healing and so good at helping those who hurt. It was because he himself experienced hurt and sorrow and loss and grief. I think Jesus really understood pain, and that made him an exceptional healer. Saints, maybe next time you're going through something difficult, you can turn your attention away from yourself a little bit and start looking around for those who are also hurting. Because when you are in pain, you just might be the best person to bring healing. That's your devotional this week, and I hope it's worth thinking about. Hope it's helpful for you. Hope you are doing well and staying healthy. I will be praying for you, saints. Please keep praying for me. And y'all take care. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.